Greetings to all. It is my pleasure to participate to the Olink Proteomics World event. I am Dr. Fidelle. I'm PharmD PhD in Laurent Sid Vogel Lab at Gustave Roussy in France. And I'm going to present you the effect of the fecal microbiota transplantation on the immune system in patients with cancer. So here are my disclosures. It is well known and well established that the gut microbiota plays a fundamental role in our health, and notably by its impact of the metabolism, but also the immune system homeostasis. Therefore, the microbiota is now part of the hallmarks of cancer due to all the function they impact in patients. Let me present you the rationale beyond the fact that the gut microbiota play a role in cancer immunomodulation. The first step was to show that actually the antibiotics can blunt the efficacy of immunotherapy, notably the immune checkpoint blockade. So this immunotherapy has revolutionized the cancer field, and it acts by a restimulation of the immune system to fight and get rid of the cancer cells. And in 2018, we have shown that the antibiotics can dramatically decrease the efficacy of this immunotherapy in patients. And this finding has been corroborated now in several studies in thousands of patients treated with immunotherapy. This discovery led us to dig into the gut microbiota composition of the patient treated with immunotherapy. And what we discovered in 2018 with other teams is that actually the gut microbiota composition can have an impact on the response to immunotherapy in patients with lung cancer, renal cancer, but also in the case of melanoma. And since several studies corroborated this fact, and what we observed is that bacteria, the Akkermansia muciniphila bacteria, was one of the main bacteria found in patients that respond to immunotherapy. On the other hand, species such as enterocluster species, but also Veillonellacea, were more prevalent, abundant in patients that will not respond to immunotherapy. And recently, we established a structural organization of the microbiota ecosystem in patients with lung cancer. So by analyzing the stool composition of 245 patients with lung cancer treated by immunotherapy, two clusters of bacteria popped out, one associated with better outcome, the SIG2, composed by 45 favorable bacteria, such as Lachnospiraceae or Oscillospiraceae. And on the other hand, the SIG1 cluster associated with 37 unfavorable bacteria, such as enterocluster species, but also Veillonellacea. And based on these studies, we were able to develop a score associated with dysbiosis in patients with cancer, and based on the prevalence of the bacteria composing the two clusters, SIG1 and SIG2. And we named it the Toposcore. So the calculation of this score is in two steps. The first step is to count the number of bacteria in each cluster, SIG1 and SIG2, and to perform a delta of the two clusters. And we obtain a continuous score from 0 to 1 with two well-established extremities. On one end, the SIG1 corresponds to patients with higher prevalence of SIG1 bacteria, and on the other hand, the SIG2 zone is associated, corresponds to patients with an overabundance of bacteria of the SIG2 cluster. But as you can notice, there is a gray zone where it's difficult to really obtain the weight of each cluster. It's unclear. And to be able to conclude about the dysbiosis of the patient, we perform a second step And this is based on the bacteria Akkermansia mucinifila. As I already mentioned, this bacteria is more prevalent in patients that will respond to immunotherapy, but unless if this bacteria is too abundant. So for the second step, for the patient classified in the gray zone, what we have decided is that patients that have normal physiological relative abundance of this bacteria will be classified as the SIG2 positive patients, whereas patients that have not this beneficial bacteria or patients that have a subphysiological relative abundance of this bacteria will be classified as SIG1 positive. So this score was established on the discovery cohort of patients with non-small cell lung cancer, and we showed that patients that have more that are classified as SIG2 positive with beneficial bacteria as the ones that have better outcome during their treatment. And we validated these results on a second cohort of patients treated with cancer treated with immunotherapy. And we show that indeed patients that are dysbiotic classified as SIG1 positive as the one with poorer outcome. And interestingly, the cancer-associated dysbiosis we described is actually can share commonalities with other diseases such as cardiovascular disease and other chronic inflammatory disease. And one commonality is that in the poorer outcome, there is an overrepresentation of enterocluster species. Lately, we have discovered that high abundance of enterocluster species actually occur after antibiotics and can lead to the downregulation of a protein, the MAdCAM1, at the surface of high endothelial venules in the small intestine. And this protein, MAdCAM1, is fundamental for the homing of the gut-originated leukocytes expressing the integrin alpha-4 beta-7. So during dysbiosis, either after antibiotics and when there is an overrepresentation of enterocluster species, we show that because of the loss of MAdCAM1 on high endothelial venule, there is a recirculation of immunosuppressive cells that are ROR-gamma-T positive Treg cells secreting IL-17. Indeed, and those cells accumulating in the tumor microenvironment, this phenomenon was associated with the loss of efficacy of immunotherapy. So in mice, but also in human, we have shown that actually after antibiotics, there is a decrease of this MAdCAM1 expression, and this is actually due to the gut microbiota composition because regulated by different kinds of bacteria, increased with Akkermansia, but downregulated by enterocluster species. In human, we take advantage of the fact that MAdCAM1 can be dosed in the plasma under its soluble form, the soluble MAdCAM1, and we validated that in patients that took antibiotics, there is downregulation of the level of soluble MAdCAM1. And interestingly, in patients that have low level of this soluble form MAdCAM1 are the ones that have poor outcome in patients with lung cancer, renal cell carcinoma, but also bladder cancer treated with immunotherapy. And this is associated with an outgrowth, an overabundance of enterocluster species. So altogether, these results confirm the crucial role of the composition of the gut microbiota for patient outcome treated with immunotherapy. And to validate this point, we have developed what we call the avatar mice model. So the aim of this model is to actually humanize the gut microbiota of the mouse by fecal microbiota transplantation using feces coming from human, here coming from patients that will receive immunotherapy. And we studied the impact of the fecal microbiota transplantation on the efficacy of immunotherapy, anti-PD-1, anti-CTLA-4. And amazingly, what we have shown is that mice receiving feces from patients that will not respond to immunotherapy actually had poorer outcomes than the ones that received the feces from patients that will respond. And this concept of fecal microbiota transplantation has been applied to patients. In 2021, two studies show that actually the transplantation of the microbiome coming from patients treated with immunotherapy for their metastatic melanoma with a complete response actually could, in 1/3 of the case, restore the efficacy of the anti-PD-1 and immunotherapy in patients that were actually primary resistant to immunotherapy. And finally, a new phase 1 trial, still in advanced melanoma, treated with anti-PD-1, showed that by using the feces of healthy volunteers in patients treated for their melanoma, actually, this fecal microbiota transplantation was safe and also associated with mainly partial and complete response. And these results have to be validated in a larger phase 3 trial. So altogether, these several studies open the door to microbiota-centered interventions as a way to increase the efficacy of immunotherapy in patients. But this must be accompanied by an understanding of the immune mechanism behind. So, the discovery of MADCAM1 as a gut immune checkpoint and the Toposcore as a dysbiosis test was two major steps. Nevertheless, we need to understand how FMT can circumvent the resistance to immunotherapy in dysbiosis. And for this purpose, we use the AVATAR mice model with a first step corresponding to the humanization of the gut microbiota of the mice by the transplantation with stools from patients that were dysbiotic. And the second step corresponds to the microbiota-centered intervention, so the fecal microbiota transplantation from feces of patients, dysbiotic or not. And mice, so humanized microbiota mouse treated with this microbiota-centered intervention received several courses of anti-PD-1, and we monitored the tumor growth in these mice. And in this experiment, we tested two different donors for the second FMT, the FMT2A and the FMT2B. And we noticed that actually the FMT2A led to a decrease of the tumoral burden in mice treated with anti-PD-1. On the other hand, the lack of efficacy of the second FMT, the FMT2B, was associated with a dramatic decrease of the diversity in the gut microbiota of the mice, so it corresponds to dysbiotic mice. And this dysbiosis and lack of efficacy of anti-PD-1 in these mice were associated with an accumulation of the TR17 and the TH17 cells, so the ones that we found recirculating in the tumor microenvironment during dysbiosis. And to understand the dynamic of the regulation of the immune tonus during the FMT process, we managed to perform a longitudinal analysis of 40 cytokines in the plasma of the mice. And interestingly, we were able to corroborate the accumulation of the Rho-gamma-T positive cells in the tumor microenvironment with an increase of the production of the IL-17 cytokine, which is produced by the Rho-gamma-T positive cells. And when we look at the longitudinal evolution of those cytokines, we observe that indeed in mice that fail to control the tumor growth under anti-PD-1 treatment are the ones that have an increase of IL-17 cytokine. And we also notice that there is an increase of the IL-10 Treg-related cytokine in those mice. And we can perform the ratio between interferon gamma, more associated with effector Th1, and the cytokine IL-17 associated with Th17, or the cytokine IL-10 associated with Treg cells. And we confirm that mice that respond, to the immunotherapy are the ones that have more Th1 signature with more interferon. When we dissect the response across all our groups of mice, we show that the key point of response to anti-PD-1 in the experiment occurs at day 10, corresponding at after 2 treatments with anti-PD-1. And when we look longitudinally to the cytokine levels in the plasma of the mice, we confirm that in mice that do not respond, there is an increase of the production of IL-17 cytokines and a decrease of the interferon gamma Th1-related cytokine. As previously, we performed the ratio between interferon gamma and IL-17 or interferon gamma and IL-10. And we notice that indeed in responder mice, at day 10, there is an increase of the tonus towards the Th1 response over Th17 and Treg cells. So these results confirm that the production and the differentiation of Th17 and Tr17 cells during dysbiosis and their recirculation towards the tumor microenvironment is dependent of the gut microbiota composition and can be assessed by plasmatic proteomics. So I hope that I convince you about the major role of the gut microbiota for the function of the immune system in the context of immunotherapy in patients with cancer. And this opened the gate to microbiota-centered intervention to provide a solution for dysbiotic patients and help them to respond better to their immunotherapy. And I would like to thank all the pioneers that started the investigation of the gut microbiota 10 years ago. And of course, our team at Gustave Roussy and all the alumni and all the collaborators and especially the patients. So thank you for your attention.